And the Grammy goes to Mr. Controversy, Eminem.
Recovery!
Eminem, the Eminem Show.
And my little girl, because without you I wouldn't be here tonight. Thank you, baby. Daddy loves you.
The bond between Eminem and Dr. Dre was never just a partnership between a producer and a rapper. It was something far rarer, an unexpected collision of two worlds that would permanently reshape modern music. At the end of the 1990s, the music industry was desperate for a new voice, something dangerous, disruptive, and impossible to ignore. What it found was an unlikely alliance between a visionary from Compton and a furious young white rapper from Detroit. One was already a legend fighting to protect his legacy. The other was a struggling outsider with nothing left to lose. Together, they created an explosion that shook the culture. But their story was never only about music. It was about loyalty without conditions. It was about believing in someone when nobody else would. It was about two men from completely different worlds discovering a shared language through art that was brutally honest, unapologetic, and real. It all began in 1997. At an event called the Rap Olympics in Los Angeles, a young Eminem stood on stage carrying the weight of failure on his back. His debut album, Infinite, had flopped. Critics dismissed him. Labels ignored him. He was broke, angry, and on the edge of giving up. But that night, he performed like a man with nothing left to protect. He finished in second place, but the real victory happened after the show. A copy of the Slim Shady EP found its way into the hands of Jimmy Iovine at Interscope Records. Intrigued by the raw intensity, he passed it on to Dr. Dre. At that moment, Dre was fighting his own battle. After leaving Death Row Records, many questioned whether he still had the power to shape the future of hip-hop. The pressure was enormous. He needed something new, something undeniable. Then he pressed play. From the first listen, Dre was locked in. The voice was strange. The humor was dark. The lyrics were fearless, chaotic, and razor-sharp. It didn't sound like anyone else. It didn't follow the rules, and that was exactly why it mattered. Dre didn't care that the rapper behind the voice was white. He didn't care where he came from. He only knew one thing: he had to find him. That moment would become one of the most important discoveries in music history. Because when Dr. Dre found Eminem, he wasn't just signing an artist. He was helping unleash a force the world would never forget. One of the most legendary stories in hip-hop history is the moment Dr. Dre met Eminem face-to-face for the very first time. It happened inside Dre's home studio, a place where careers were either born or buried. When Eminem walked in, he wasn't a superstar. He was still just Marshall Mathers, broke, hungry, and carrying years of rejection on his shoulders. But Dre had already heard something in him, something dangerous, something unforgettable. Without wasting time, Dre played a beat. That beat would later become My Name Is. The instrumental started, and within seconds, Eminem reacted almost instinctively, like he had been waiting his whole life for that exact sound. He blurted out, "Hi, my name is what? My name is who?" Dre froze. It wasn't rehearsed. It wasn't forced. It was pure chemistry, immediate, explosive, undeniable. In that exact moment, Dre knew he had found something far bigger than a talented rapper. He had found a weapon. A cultural weapon, a force powerful enough to disrupt the entire music industry. But not everyone saw it that way. Inside Interscope Records, skepticism spread quickly. Ironically, some of the strongest resistance came from within the very system meant to launch new stars. Many warned Dre against signing Eminem for one simple reason: he was white. And with it, one of their most iconic collaborations. Forgot About Dre. This wasn't just a song, it was a declaration of war. A response to everyone who said Dre was finished. A reminder to the industry that legends do not disappear, they reload. In the track, Eminem defended Dre with surgical precision, tearing through critics who questioned Dre's relevance. And Dre, in return, gave Eminem the perfect battlefield to prove how much sharper, faster, and more dangerous he had become as an MC. It wasn't just a hit. It was proof that together, they were unstoppable. Dre built the architecture, the cinematic sound, the thunderous foundation. Eminem brought the ammunition, the relentless bars, the venom, the precision. They were not simply collaborators. They were a war machine. But behind the platinum records and public victories, darkness was never far away. Eminem's personal life was collapsing under the pressure of fame. His toxic relationship with Kim, the mother of his daughter, turned into public chaos. Lawsuits followed. Family battles intensified. Even his own mother took legal action against him. At the same time, Dre's own past refused to stay buried. His turbulent history with NWA old conflicts and allegations of violence from earlier years continue to haunt his image. Both men were carrying ghosts. And success, no matter how massive, could not silence them. But instead of pulling away to protect their individual reputations, they did the opposite. They turned the pain into music. At the time, the idea of a white rapper being taken seriously in hip-hop was still deeply controversial. The stigma was heavy. Many believed white rappers lacked authenticity, credibility, and the cultural legitimacy needed to survive in rap. Some even warned Dre that backing Eminem could destroy his own reputation, that he was risking everything by introducing what critics mocked as the new Elvis of hip-hop. But Dre didn't care. His response was simple and absolute. If he can out-rap everyone else on this planet, nothing else matters. That conviction became the foundation of their unbreakable loyalty. When the Slim Shady LP was released in 1999, the world didn't just notice, it exploded. The album was provocative, violent, darkly funny, and impossible to ignore. Eminem's lyrics were accused of being misogynistic, offensive, and dangerous. Politicians attacked him. Human rights groups condemned him. Critics demanded cancellation before the word even became popular. The backlash was massive, but Dr. Dre never stepped away. He stood right beside him. He never tried to censor Eminem. He never asked him to be safer, softer, or more acceptable. Instead, Dre gave Slim Shady room to become exactly what he was meant to be: chaotic, uncomfortable, and brutally honest. Their relationship had moved far beyond business. Dre became more than a producer. He became a protector, a mentor, a shield. While the world attacked Marshall Mathers, Dre made sure the artist survived the storm. Then came another defining chapter. Dr. Dre's 2001 album. The anger, the trauma, the public humiliation, the lawsuits, the addiction, the broken families. They poured all of it into the art. And nowhere was that more visible than on the Marshall Mathers LP. While critics, activists, and organizations like GLAAD condemned the album for its violence, offensive language, and controversial themes, Dr. Dre never flinched. He stood behind Eminem with the same certainty he had from day one. Because Dre saw something most people refused to understand. He saw that Eminem was not simply trying to shock people. He was a satirist. He used exaggeration like a weapon, hyperbole as a mirror to expose hypocrisy, celebrity culture, family dysfunction, and the contradictions buried inside American society itself. Where others saw chaos, Dre saw precision. Where others saw recklessness, Dre saw truth. It felt like survival. After Encore, Eminem disappeared into one of the darkest periods of his life. Prescription pills turned into full dependency. Sleeping pills, painkillers, methadone. The addiction consumed him slowly, then all at once. Behind the scenes, the man who once seemed untouchable was collapsing. And while much of the world only saw silence, Dre kept calling. That unwavering belief meant more to Eminem than the public ever realized. Because for Marshall Mathers, Dr. Dre became something far deeper than a mentor. He became the father figure he never truly had. A source of discipline. A source of validation. A man whose respect meant more than awards, money, or fame. That created a loyalty so deep that even decades later, Eminem still speaks about Dre with a level of reverence rarely seen in the music industry. But their bond would face its hardest test in the mid-2000s. By then, fame had stopped feeling like victory. He checked in, he pushed. He refused to let Marshall disappear. When Eminem nearly died from a methadone overdose in 2007, it became the moment everything changed. Dr. Dre was one of the first people to push him toward real rehabilitation. Not headlines, not temporary recovery, real survival. Without Dre's patience, pressure, and belief, the comeback may never have happened. The world might never have seen Eminem return. But it did. And that return came through Relapse in 2009. One of the most fascinating facts about Relapse is that Dr. Dre personally produced nearly the entire album almost exclusively for Eminem. For a producer as selective and legendary as Dre, that level of commitment was extraordinary. This was not just another project. It was rehabilitation through music. Yes, the album divided critics. Many questioned Eminem's strange accents and darker delivery. Some fans were confused, others dismissed it entirely. But for Dre and Eminem, relapse was never about public approval. It was about rebuilding a mind. Dre helped Eminem learn how to rap again with a brain no longer controlled by narcotics. Relearning rhythm, relearning focus, relearning confidence. It was deeply personal, almost like teaching someone how to breathe again. And while they were rebuilding internally, the outside wars never stopped. Their careers were filled with conflict, long-standing feuds with figures like Benzino from The Source, Suge Knight, and countless industry enemies who wanted either revenge or relevance. Every time someone came for Dre, Eminem was usually the first person on the front line through diss tracks, interviews, and public defense. And when the attacks were aimed at Eminem, Dre responded differently. He used power, influence, money, infrastructure. Through Aftermath Entertainment and Shady Records, Dre made sure Eminem had something stronger than fame. He had protection. A system. A fortress. Together, they built an ecosystem that was nearly untouchable from the outside. A machine designed not just for success, but for survival. And behind all of this stood another giant shadow over the industry. Sean Combs. In the late 1990s and early 2000s, Diddy was not just a music executive. He was power itself. Through Bad Boy Records and an enormous network of relationships, influence, and industry control, he shaped major parts of hip-hop culture from behind the scenes. He wasn't simply making stars. He was deciding who got access to the room, who stayed relevant, who got buried, who survived. And in an industry where politics could destroy careers faster than talent could save them, having Dr. Dre behind Eminem was more than helpful. It was armor. For Eminem, threats, intimidation, or behind-the-scenes pressure from anyone, even circles as powerful as Sean Combs, never truly reached him, because standing behind him was Dr. Dre. And Dre was not just a successful producer. He was untouchable. A living legend respected by every faction of hip-hop, from the streets of Compton to the boardrooms of multinational corporations. His name carried weight in places where money alone meant nothing. To go after Eminem meant going directly through Dre, and very few people were willing to start that war. That protection became obvious over the years as Eminem repeatedly fired sharp lyrical shots at Diddy, sometimes subtle, sometimes brutally direct, and in later years, openly provocative. While many rappers would think 1,000 times before mentioning Diddy, fearing industry blacklisting, radio silence, or invisible retaliation, Eminem did it with complete confidence, because he knew exactly where he stood. Behind him was an empire built by Dr. Dre and Jimmy Iovine, a fortress called Aftermath Entertainment and Interscope Records. This ecosystem was designed to be independent of manipulation from outside power structures like Bad Boy Records. Dre gave Eminem something most artists never receive: total creative autonomy and diplomatic protection. It meant that no outside force, not even someone as powerful as Diddy, could pressure or corner Eminem's career without triggering a much larger conflict with the West Coast machine Dre represented. And in hip-hop's brutal hierarchy, alliances matter more than headlines. The connection between Eminem and Dre became one of the most feared alliances in the entire industry, because it wasn't just about money. It was about integrity. Many industry analysts believed Dre's protection of Eminem was never only financial or physical, it was moral. It was built on trust that couldn't be bought. Diddy represented luxury, influence, access, and social dominance. But none of that worked on Eminem, because Eminem never needed validation from those rooms. He never needed permission to speak. And with Dre beside him, he had the freedom to become what few artists survive becoming: public enemy number one. He could attack anyone, challenge anyone, refuse anyone. Because as long as Dr. Dre controlled the sound behind him, Eminem's throne in hip-hop remained protected from any political game. But their relationship extended far beyond rap battles and studio sessions. It became business. Empire building. One of the clearest examples was Beats by Dre. Long before Apple acquired the company, Eminem was one of its earliest and most visible supporters, often promoting the headphones in music videos and public appearances. It showed that their partnership wasn't limited to records. They were building legacy. Together, they trusted each other's instincts not only in music, but in business. That trust helped transform them from artists into two of the most influential figures in global entertainment. And musically, their honesty was almost ruthless. Dre has often said that Eminem was one of the only people willing to criticize his production without hesitation. If Dre made a beat that didn't feel right, Eminem would say it. Directly, no politics, no fake praise, no yes men. That brutal honesty is one of the reasons their work stayed sharp for more than 2 decades. Dre didn't need people who agreed with him. He needed truth. And Eminem gave him exactly that, an unfiltered perspective that kept Dre's music connected to the raw authenticity of the streets. One of the most emotional moments in their shared history came in 2022 during Eminem's induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Dr. Dre gave the induction speech, and it was more than ceremonial. It felt personal, deeply personal. Standing on that stage, Dre spoke not just as a producer, but as a brother. He reflected on how Eminem had, in many ways, saved his career just as Dre had once helped save Eminem's life. He admitted that Eminem's talent forced him to become better, to work harder, to return to the studio with hunger. It was a rare moment of vulnerability between 2 men known for armor. And in that moment, the world saw what they truly were, not mentor and student, not boss and employee. Family. 2 legends, older now, carrying decades of scars, but still bound by the exact same loyalty.